Hello everyone, this is a review of the Deviant Moon Tarot deck. Deviant Moon Tarot is actually one of the first of 3 tarot decks that I purchased. It was one of my first real exposures to tarot, and so this deck has a lot of meaning for me, and it's one that I hold close to my heart. So it's taken a while for me to do this review because I wanted to kind of get my thoughts clear on what I would say about the deck, because I had such a gut reaction to my first workings with the deck. And yet at the same time, the images they really stick with you, and it's a very beautiful deck. Interestingly enough, Patrick Valenza, who created the Deviant Moon Tarot deck, I just want to make sure I was kind of pronouncing his name right, is working on a more in-depth guidebook that accompanies the deck, and I'm really, really excited to work with that and get some more clarity on what his meanings are. The deck comes in a box, and I'll show you the backing of the cards are really beautiful. I was drawn to it because it had moon in it, and it was technically a dark deck, so that's why I ended up purchasing it. This is what the back looks like. I love the backing. They are very thin width-wise, and then they're long lengthwise. This makes shuffling, they're not my favorite deck to shuffle, but it's not really about shuffling with me with tarot, so it doesn't really bother me. It's just one of those things that it's not my favorite deck to shuffle. And they are they're a thick cardstock, so they stand up to wear and tear, but they do tend to kind of curl up on the edges a little bit, especially if you're in an area with a lot of moisture. That's just a side point. So anyhow, the deck comes with the deck, a little white book, which this was part of my thing when I first started working with tarot, is that, this was all that I got. And so the meanings felt a little harsh, especially in this deck. The meanings can be a little bit, they're very clear and they're very truthful, but they can be a little bit harsh. And it also comes with this large Deviant Moon Tarot spread. And it's quite a large spread. And so if this is a new deck for you, I don't recommend diving right into this spread, because that's what I did, and I was very overwhelmed. So I would say, work with a 1 or a 3 card spread until you get more comfortable with in tarot, and then move on to like a larger spread like this. This is a 10 card spread, and it can be a little overwhelming if it's your first introduction. But if it's not and you're a seasoned tarot reader, then it's definitely a fun spread to play around with. So I wanted to read a little bit about the kind of art that he uses in this. And this is in the introduction to the little white book. The Deviant Moon Tarot deck was created using various forms of photographic manipulation. Each card began with a complete drawing, which was then scanned into the computer, where I applied various photographic textures. 19th century tombstones provide most of the clothing worn by the citizens of the Deviant Moon. I bent, twisted, and reformed my photos to become capes, boots, hats, and trim. So he was finding these textures throughout the city and applying them to the deck. So the images are quite unique. You're really not going to find it in another deck that's quite like this. The images themselves, because it's this very unique and beautiful process, they can be, to a certain extent, to me, almost a little more alarming than, like, the Tarot of the Vampires is not a scary deck to me at all, but for quite a few of my clients, if I choose to use that deck when I'm working with them, they tell me that the images are a bit frightening to them. And for me, the images in this deck were almost more frightening than anything I've encountered in any other deck. They're very, very, they cut to the heart of the matter. So I will just say that before I start showing you the images. That being said, I love this deck, and like I said, I have a deep, deep appreciation for this deck, because it's one of the first decks that I ever purchased. Let me show you the images that I really love in this deck first. And you'll understand what I'm saying about the feel of this deck. I mean, I almost think if you're a steampunk fan, like with the Steampunk Tarot, you'd really enjoy this deck as well. Here's the Chariot. Death, which is not listed as death, it just has the number 13. The Lovers. The Two of Cups. The Empress. And this next image was actually one of the reasons why I bought the deck. I just absolutely love the imagery on this card. This is the Seven of Pentacles. I don't know why, but I just absolutely love the imagery on this. It's one of my favorite representations of the Seven of Pentacles. The Queen of Wands. Four of Wands. Eight of Wands. Four of Swords. I just love that one. Three of Pentacles. Three of Wands. The World. I think that one's really beautiful. Knight of Wands. The Fool. I don't know why, but I really love this representation of the Fool. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. The Two of Pentacles. I love this image too. This is another reason why I ended up purchasing this deck. Tribal Belly Dancer. Just love her. The Devil. I actually love this representation of the Devil too in this deck. Strength. The Star. The High Priestess. Oops. And this is actually one of my favorite representations of the Ten of Swords. So you can see what I mean by, to me, the imagery is almost more haunting than in some of the other typically dark decks, because it's just very truthful in some ways. Like, it's really just, you get that feeling when I look at the cards in this deck. It's a very visceral reaction that I have to the images because they feel so real as I'm looking at them. So in that way, it's very effective tarot deck, but it is a very in-your-face tarot deck with some of the images. So those are some of my favorite images in the deck. I don't have any that I really dislike because I think they get their point across in all of them. I have some that, like, artistically are not my absolute favorite. I wanted to show this as one of my favorites too, and I forgot you, the Ace of Pentacles. I'm trying to see. Like, this representation of the Wheel of Fortune is not necessarily my favorite, but I don't feel like, oh, I hate that image. Oh, and I love this representation of the Hermit. Side point, that goes in the good pile. I mean, there's not really any that I really dislike, or I feel like, ugh, as I'm looking at it, as I do with some cards in certain decks. Let me just see. I don't necessarily love the Page of Wands. I'm not very overly drawn to the court cards in this deck. Like, they don't really stick out to me and speak to me the way that they do in the Steampunk Tarot or the Tarot, Ian Daniels Tarot of the Vampires. However, that being said, I think, they are, like, here's the Queen of Swords. I think you can still definitely interact with them. It's just not quite as immediate for me as it is with certain other decks. Here's the King of Pentacles. I don't really love that one, but I think it does get its point across very well. So that's, the majority of the images in the deck. The little white book, like I said, it's not enough information really to sink your teeth into this deck. And thankfully, Valenza's getting the opportunity to create a guidebook for us that's really going to let us kind of get immersed in his world and the symbolism and the artistic choices that he's made with the deck. And I'm really, really excited to get to read that guidebook and then incorporate that into working with the deck. This is pretty much a personal deck for me. In fact, it's really become my husband's deck. He's really drawn to it, and he can give amazing tarot readings with this deck. For me, I do use it personally for personal readings, but I have not yet used it with any clients besides my husband. This deck, like I said, really speaks to him. This is like his home base as far as decks go. But for other clients, I haven't felt nudged in the direction to use it for anyone yet. It's a very personal deck because, like I said, it is one of the first decks that I ended up getting and actually working with. And this Little White Book is one of the first forays into the tarot symbolism and system for me. So it's a very personal deck. But that being said, it is a very clear deck, and it's also a very no-nonsense deck, so it's really going to just give you the answers and tell you how it is. You know, even if you don't necessarily want to see how it is, it's quite clear, especially in readings that you do for yourself. So this is another highly recommended tarot deck that I absolutely love, and that I am excited to get to know more and more, especially with Valenza's new guidebook coming out for it. So I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye.